The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with the nervous hum of alien delegates. Beings from every corner of the galaxy were present, their distinct physiologies adding a chaotic array of colors, shapes, and sounds to the room. The Zenthari, with their crystalline forms shimmering under the chamber's lights, sat stiffly next to the gelatinous Lamari, who bubbled softly in their containment suits. Tension thickened the air as the council's presiding officer, a towering reptilian called Voraktor, slammed his clawed hand against the podium to call for order. "Let it be known that humanity has been given every chance to comply with our directives," Voraktor growled, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Their refusal to disarm and submit to galactic law poses a direct threat to interstellar peace. Today, we decide their fate." Across the galaxy, the broadcast of the Council's ultimatum reached Earth. Humans watched with a mix of curiosity and defiance, their various screens displaying the alien delegates arguing about their future. In a small room deep within a military installation, Fleet Admiral Evelyn Rourke leaned back in her chair, a wry smile playing across her lips as she observed the transmission. "What do you think, Admiral?" asked Commander Davis, his voice tinged with apprehension. The younger officer stood by her side, arms crossed tightly over his chest. Rourke's eyes narrowed as she studied the alien assembly. "They talk a lot, don't they? Typical bureaucrats. They think they can scare us into submission. They have no idea what humanity is capable of." Davis exhaled sharply. "Their fleets outnumber us 10-1. They'll see us as a threat now. This ultimatum is just an excuse to eliminate us." "Good," Rourke said, standing and adjusting her uniform. "Let them come." Meanwhile, back in the council chamber, a Lamari delegate bubbled anxiously. "We must reconsider. Humanity's technological advancements are primitive compared to ours, but their unpredictability makes them dangerous. This is a species that turned their own planet into a testing ground for weapons of mass destruction. Do we truly wish to provoke them? Their barbarism is precisely why they must be subdued," Voraktor snapped, slamming his fist again. "They are a primitive, violent species that cannot be trusted with advanced technology." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. One by one, the council delegates began to cast their votes. The decision was unanimous: humanity would be forcibly disarmed. A message was transmitted to Earth within moments, its tone authoritative and uncompromising. Earth's response arrived in record time. The message was simple, containing just 2 words: "Come try." The Galactic Council's fleets mobilized within days. Massive armadas, each bristling with weapons and shielded by technology millennia in the making, began converging on the Sol system. The alien commanders exchanged confident boasts as they prepared to crush the rebellious humans. But as they approached the outer edges of the system, things started to go wrong. The First Fleet encountered what appeared to be a derelict human ship drifting near Pluto. When they moved in to investigate, the vessel exploded with such force that it wiped out the entire scouting squadron. The Second Fleet, moving cautiously through the asteroid belt, found itself ambushed by stealth fighters that emerged from the shadows, striking with precision before vanishing again. In the heart of the chaos, Admiral Rourke stood aboard the command deck of the Indomitable, the flagship of humanity's fleet. The room buzzed with activity as officers monitored the progress of the battle. "Status report," Rourke barked. Commander Davis turned from his console, his face lit by the glow of the holographic display. "The Zenthari flagship has been disabled. Lamari forces are retreating from the asteroid belt. Losses on our side are minimal." "Good," Rourke said, her voice calm despite the intensity of the situation. "Send a message to the remaining fleets. Let them know we're just getting started." The next wave of alien ships entered the fray, their commanders determined to outsmart the humans. They unleashed weapons designed to disable entire planets, confident that humanity's defenses couldn't withstand the onslaught. But as their attacks surged forward, they were met with an unexpected sight: human ships maneuvering with impossible precision, using tactics that defied all logic. "They're using their own debris as shields," a Zenthari commander exclaimed, his crystalline body vibrating with frustration. "How are they adapting so quickly?" Inside the Indomitable, Rourke smiled grimly. Let them keep underestimating us, she muttered. They think this is about technology. It's not. This is about will. As the battle raged on, humanity's ingenuity became increasingly evident. Engineers aboard Earth's ships rerouted power in ways the aliens couldn't predict, creating makeshift weapons from damaged components. Pilots executed maneuvers that seemed suicidal but resulted in devastating blows to the enemy. Despite their initial confidence, the alien forces began to falter. The Council delegates, watching the battle unfold from the safety of their distant worlds, grew increasingly alarmed. We underestimated them, the Lamari delegate admitted, his gelatinous form quivering. Their strategies are unconventional. Voraktor slammed his claw against the podium yet again, but this time his frustration was evident. This is only a setback. We will regroup and overwhelm them with sheer numbers. But deep down, even Voraktor couldn't deny the truth: humanity was unlike any species they had ever faced. Back on Earth, the mood was one of grim determination. Civilians worked tirelessly to support the war effort, from manufacturing supplies to sharing intelligence. The spirit of unity was palpable, and it fueled the resolve of every soldier, engineer, and pilot fighting in the stars. Admiral Rourke stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, staring out at the wreckage of alien ships scattered across the void. She knew the battle was far from over, but she also knew one thing with absolute certainty: humanity would not go quietly. She turned to Commander Davis, her expression unyielding. They thought they could dictate terms to us. They were wrong. Let's show them what it means to fight for our survival. As the next wave of alien fleets loomed on the horizon, humanity braced for the fight of its life. The stakes had never been higher, but neither had their resolve. The Galactic Council's second wave advanced with grim determination, their fleets now bolstered by reinforcements from every corner of their vast alliance. The ships themselves were marvels of alien engineering, vast, city-sized vessels bristling with weaponry and shielded by energy fields thought to be impenetrable. Coordinated through a hive-like communication network, the Council's admirals adjusted their tactics, determined not to repeat the mistakes of the first wave. For the humans aboard the Indomitable and the rest of the Terran fleet, the stakes had only escalated. Admiral Rourke stood on the bridge, her expression steely as she surveyed the holographic battlefield displayed before her. Red icons representing the enemy fleet steadily encroached on the Sol system, their sheer number enough to make even seasoned officers swallow hard. "Admiral," Commander Davis said, his voice tight but controlled, "enemy fleet count is now confirmed at over 1,200 vessels. They've deployed planetary suppression units and gravitational disruptors near Saturn's orbit." "Let them come," Rourke said without hesitation. Her calm, unshakable demeanor was like an anchor for her crew. "We knew this wasn't going to be easy. What's the status of Operation Mirage?" Lieutenant Hayes, seated at the tactical station, glanced up from her console. "Decoys are in position, ma'am. Automated signature emitters have been programmed to mimic fleet movements near Uranus and Neptune. If the Council commanders fall for it, they'll divide their forces." Rourke nodded, her gaze fixed on the holographic display. "Good. And the sleeper cells?" Davis hesitated for a fraction of a second before responding. "Deployed as planned. Infiltration teams report that several enemy vessels have been compromised, but they're running silent until the main engagement begins." "Perfect," Rourke said. "Let's make this count." As the Council fleet moved deeper into the system, the first wave of decoys activated. Automated drones, disguised as human warships, emitted false signals designed to fool the enemy's scanners. From the perspective of the Council commanders, it appeared as though the Terran fleet had split into 3 smaller groups, each seemingly vulnerable and scattered. The ruse worked, at least partially. Several Council admirals diverted their forces to engage the fleets near Uranus and Neptune, leaving the main assault group slightly weakened. However, the remaining forces were still overwhelming, and as they advanced toward Earth, their confidence remained high. On board the Indomitable, tension was thick in the air as the main fleet prepared to engage. The crew worked with methodical precision, their training and discipline shining through despite the odds stacked against them. Enemy forces are within engagement range, Hayes reported. They're charging their primary weapons. Hold fire, Rourke said, her voice calm but firm. Let them commit first. Seconds later, the void erupted with light as the Council ships unleashed a devastating salvo. Beams of energy, each capable of slicing through a planet's crust, streaked toward the Terran fleet. Missiles carrying gravimetric warheads arced across the battlefield, their trajectories guided by alien supercomputers. But the humans had anticipated this. As the first wave of attacks closed in, the Terran ships executed a series of complex maneuvers, each one choreographed down to the millisecond. Some vessels deployed countermeasures that distorted the enemy's targeting systems, while others used the debris from earlier battles as makeshift shields. Explosions lit up the darkness as several human ships were struck, but the majority of the fleet emerged unscathed. Then, with brutal precision, the humans struck back. Fire at will, Rourke commanded. The Terran fleet's response was swift and devastating. Railguns fired projectiles at near-light speeds, tearing through alien hulls like paper. Swarms of autonomous drones, equipped with adaptive AI, infiltrated the Council ships, targeting critical systems with surgical precision. Meanwhile, human pilots in nimble fighter craft darted through the chaos, exploiting weaknesses in the alien formations. Despite their superior numbers, the Council fleet struggled to adapt. Human tactics were chaotic and unpredictable, defying the Council's reliance on calculated strategies. Alien admirals, accustomed to facing enemies that played by the rules of conventional warfare, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. On board the Zen 3 flagship Aurora's Vow, Admiral Felix seethed with frustration. His crystalline form pulsed with light as he barked orders to his crew. Focus fire on their command ship. If we decapitate their leadership, the rest will crumble. The Aurora's Vow and its accompanying ships unleashed a concentrated barrage aimed directly at the Indomitable. The attacks were precise, targeting the human flagship's engines and primary weapons systems. Shields at 60%. Hayes called out as the Indomitable shuddered under the assault. Redirect auxiliary power to the forward shields, Rourke ordered. And bring the Aegis array online. Moments later, the Indomitable's experimental Aegis array activated, enveloping the ship in a shimmering energy field. The alien attacks dissipated harmlessly against the array, buying the Terran fleet precious time to regroup. Meanwhile, the infiltration teams aboard the Council ships made their move. Human operatives, disguised in adaptive camouflage, sabotaged critical systems from within. On the Aurora's Vow, Felix's triumphant grin faded as alarms blared throughout the ship. Internal systems compromised, one of his subordinates reported. Our weapons are offline, and the engine core is destabilizing. Felix's crystalline body dimmed as he realized the extent of the damage. How? How is this possible? Across the battlefield, similar chaos unfolded as other Council ships fell victim to human sabotage. Entire formations were thrown into disarray, leaving them vulnerable to the relentless attacks of the Terran fleet. But the humans weren't without their own losses. Several smaller vessels were destroyed in the chaos, their crews sacrificing themselves to protect their comrades. Each loss was felt deeply, but it only strengthened the resolve of those who remained. Back on the Indomitable, Rourke observed the battlefield with unflinching focus. Target the remaining suppression units, she ordered. We can't let them deploy those gravimetric disruptors. The Terran ships responded immediately, concentrating their firepower on the alien suppression units. One by one, the massive devices were destroyed, their explosions sending shockwaves through the void. As the battle raged on, the Council forces began to falter. What had started as a coordinated assault had devolved into chaos, with individual commanders acting out of desperation. Yet even in their disarray, the alien ships remained a formidable threat. Admiral, Davis said, his voice tight, we've got multiple enemy reinforcements inbound. If we don't finish this soon, we'll be overwhelmed. Rourke's eyes narrowed as she made her decision. Activate the Polaris protocol. Gasps rippled through the bridge, but no one questioned her. The Polaris Protocol was humanity's most desperate contingency, a plan that involved luring the enemy into a specific position and detonating a series of experimental warheads designed to create localized black holes. "It's risky," Davis said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's necessary," Rourke replied. "Prepare the fleet." As the Council forces closed in, the Terran fleet executed a daring retreat, drawing the enemy into the designated kill zone. The alien commanders, sensing an opportunity, ordered their ships to pursue, unaware of the trap they were walking into. When the Council fleet was in position, Rourke gave the order. "Detonate the warheads." For a moment, the battlefield fell silent. Then, a series of brilliant flashes lit up the void as the experimental warheads detonated. Space itself seemed to ripple as localized black holes formed, consuming everything within their reach. The devastation was absolute. Dozens of Council ships were annihilated in an instant, their remains swallowed by the void. Those that survived scrambled to regroup, their confidence shattered. As the Terran fleet regrouped, Admiral Rourke stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, her gaze unwavering. The battle wasn't over, but humanity had sent a clear message: they would not go quietly. The remnants of the Galactic Council fleet drifted in the void, their once formidable armada now a shadow of its former self. Fires burned on crippled ships, oxygen venting into the vacuum of space in shimmering, frozen trails. The battlefield was a graveyard of wreckage, the debris of alien vessels intermingling with the charred remains of human fighters. But this was no victory lap for humanity. The Terran fleet was bloodied, their forces stretched thin, their resources near depletion. Admiral Evelyn Rourke stood at the helm of the Indomitable, her shoulders squared despite the fatigue etched into her features. The bridge crew worked furiously around her, their movements tense and precise. Every officer knew that they were nearing the final act, the crescendo of a war that could decide the fate of their species. "Admiral," Commander Davis said, his voice heavy with urgency, "we've intercepted enemy communications. The Council's reinforcements are converging on us. Their command fleet has entered the system, and it's massive." "How massive?" Rourke asked, her voice steady. Davis gestured toward the holographic display. The map lit up with a swarm of red icons, thousands of ships, a coordinated force unlike anything they had faced before. Rourke stared at the display, her jaw tightening. The enemy's flagship loomed at the center, a gargantuan vessel bristling with weaponry and protected by impenetrable shielding. Known as the Eternal Accord, it was both a symbol of the Council's dominance and the cornerstone of their strategy. If humanity had any hope of survival, that ship had to fall. "They've committed everything," Lieutenant Hayes muttered from her station. "If we lose this engagement, Earth will have no defenses left." "We won't lose," Rourke said firmly. Her voice cut through the tension like a blade. "We've been underestimated before. Let's make them regret it." The crew exchanged glances, their resolve hardening. Rourke's unyielding confidence was contagious, and it carried them through the fear. "Send out the order," Rourke continued. "All ships are to regroup at the designated coordinates. Prepare for a full-scale engagement. This is it, people. No one fights harder than humanity when our backs are against the wall." As the Terran fleet scrambled into formation, engineers and technicians worked tirelessly to repair damaged ships. Ammunition was rationed, energy reserves stretched to their limits, and every soldier was prepared to fight to their last breath. Across the fleet, humanity's resolve burned like a beacon. Meanwhile, aboard the Eternal Accord, Supreme Admiral Voraktor stood in his command chamber, his reptilian eyes narrowed as he watched the humans' movements. His confidence was unshaken, even as reports of earlier failures trickled in. "Primitive species," Voraktor hissed. "They may have delayed the inevitable, but they cannot escape it." Around him, his officers nodded in agreement. The Council fleet's overwhelming firepower seemed unstoppable, and their strategies had been revised to account for humanity's unpredictability. Every weapon was primed, every formation optimized. They were prepared to crush Earth's defenders in a single, decisive blow. Back on the Indomitable, Rourke studied the Council fleet's formation. She could see the precision in their movements, the calculated efficiency of their strategy. It was a trap designed to ensnare her forces, to box them in and annihilate them. But she had no intention of playing by their rules. "Commander Davis," she said, her tone clipped and direct. "Initiate Operation Tempest." Davis blinked, his surprise evident. "Admiral, are you sure? That plan will work," Rourke interrupted. "We can't beat them by conventional means. We have to turn their strength into a weakness. Execute the order." Davis nodded reluctantly and relayed the command. Across the fleet, human ships began dispersing, breaking formation in what appeared to be a chaotic retreat. To the untrained eye, it looked like disarray, a panicked reaction to the overwhelming force bearing down on them. Voraktor's lips curled into a satisfied grin as he watched the Terran fleet scatter. "Predictable," he sneered. "Advance and crush them." The Council ships surged forward, closing in on the fleeing humans. But as they entered the asteroid belt near Mars, the true nature of Operation Tempest became clear. Hidden among the asteroids were hundreds of dormant human drones, each equipped with high-yield explosives and cloaking devices. As the Council fleet moved into the kill zone, the drones activated. One by one, they detonated, unleashing a devastating chain reaction. Entire squadrons of alien ships were torn apart, their formations shattered. Chaos erupted within the Council ranks. Voraktor roared in frustration, his claws slamming into the command console. "What is happening?" he demanded. "They lured us into a trap," one of his officers shouted. "Our ships are." Before the officer could finish, a massive explosion rocked the Eternal Accord. Sparks flew across the command chamber as alarms blared. The humans had launched a targeted strike against the flagship, exploiting the confusion to deliver a crippling blow. Back on the Indomitable, Rourke watched the chaos unfold with grim satisfaction. But her victory was short-lived. The Council fleet was still massive, and despite their losses, they were regrouping quickly. "We've bought ourselves time," Rourke said, "but it's not enough. We need to take out the Eternal Accord. Without their command ship, the rest of their fleet will fall into disarray." Davis looked at her, his expression grave. "Admiral, their shields are still active. Even with everything we've got, we don't have the firepower to breach them." "We don't need firepower," Rourke replied. "We need ingenuity. Patch me through to all ships." Moments later, her voice echoed across the fleet. "This is Admiral Rourke. The enemy thinks they've got us cornered, but they've underestimated us one last time. We're going to hit them where it hurts. Every ship, every fighter, every soldier, this is our moment. Fight like hell." The final phase of the battle began. Human ships swarmed the Eternal Accord, their movements coordinated with precision. Pilots executed daring maneuvers, drawing enemy fire and creating openings for bombers to strike. Infiltration teams, launched from stealth pods, boarded the flagship to disable its shields from within. Inside the Eternal Accord, Voraktor fought to maintain control. His officers scrambled to respond to the human assault, but their systems were failing one by one. The infiltrators moved with ruthless efficiency, sabotaging critical components and sowing chaos. In the command chamber, Voraktor finally realized the truth. "They're not just fighting to survive," he growled. "They're fighting to win." On the Indomitable, Rourke gave the final order. "All ships, focus fire on the flagship. Take it down." The combined firepower of the Terran fleet converged on the Eternal Accord. Its shields flickered and failed, and moments later, a series of explosions tore through the ship. The flagship disintegrated in a fiery blaze, taking Voraktor and his command staff with it. As the Council fleet watched their flagship's destruction, their resolve crumbled. Without leadership, their remaining forces retreated, fleeing the system in disarray. The battlefield fell silent. Humanity had won, but the cost had been staggering. Rourke stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, her gaze heavy as she surveyed the wreckage. "We did it," Davis said softly, his voice a mix of relief and exhaustion. Rourke nodded, but her expression remained somber. We survived. But this isn't the end. The galaxy knows what we're capable of now. They'll come back. And when they did, humanity would be ready. The aftermath of the battle against the Galactic Council was both sobering and triumphant. The shattered remains of alien ships floated through the Sol system, a grim testament to the ferocity of humanity's stand. On Earth and aboard the surviving Terran fleet vessels, the celebrations were subdued, tempered by the weight of the losses and the uncertain future ahead. Fleet Admiral Evelyn Rourke stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, her gaze fixed on the stars. The silence in the room felt deafening compared to the chaos of the battle, but it gave her time to reflect. She had led humanity to victory against overwhelming odds, but at what cost? The door behind her slid open with a soft hiss, and Commander Davis stepped in. His uniform was singed, his expression weary, but there was a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Admiral," he began, "reports are coming in from across the fleet. Casualties are heavy, but morale is high. Earth is safe. For now." "For now," Rourke echoed, her tone contemplative. She turned to face him, her sharp features illuminated by the faint glow of the distant stars. "The Council will regroup. This isn't over, Davis. We've shown them what we're capable of, but they'll see this as an even greater threat." Davis nodded, his jaw tightening. "You're right, ma'am. But we've also shown ourselves what we're capable of. That has to count for something." "It does," Rourke said. "But survival isn't enough. If we're going to stand against them again, we need more than bravery. We need unity, strategy, and innovation." Over the next weeks, humanity turned its focus toward rebuilding and fortifying. The wreckage of alien ships was salvaged and studied, their advanced technology reverse-engineered by human scientists. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged vessels, while factories across Earth churned out new weapons and ships at an unprecedented rate. Humanity's ingenuity and adaptability shone brighter than ever. On the Indomitable, the command crew gathered for a strategy meeting. Holographic displays filled the room, showing detailed schematics of alien tech and projections for future conflicts. Dr. Lena Morozov, a leading astrophysicist, pointed to a glowing representation of a gravimetric disruptor. "This," she said, her voice filled with determination, "is a breakthrough. By repurposing the Council's technology, we've developed a prototype for a defense field that could render entire fleets untouchable. But we'll need time to refine it." "Time is something we don't have," Rourke replied, her voice sharp but not unkind. "Focus on what we can deploy now. Every second we waste is a second they're using to regroup." Commander Davis leaned forward, studying the holograms. "Admiral, what about diplomacy? The Council's forces are in disarray. Their losses were catastrophic. We could use this moment to negotiate a truce, establish humanity as more than just a defiant force. Maybe we can find allies among their ranks." Rourke considered the suggestion. It was a bold move, but it carried its own risks. The Council wasn't a monolith, its members were a fractious collection of species, each with their own agendas. Some might see humanity's victory as an opportunity to broker peace, while others would view it as an affront that demanded retribution. "It's worth exploring," she said at last. "But we approach cautiously. If there's one thing this war has taught us, it's to expect the unexpected." Davis nodded. "I'll organize a team to establish contact. If there are cracks in their unity, we'll find them." Days turned into weeks, and the first tentative messages were exchanged between humanity and isolated factions of the Council. Some species, like the Lamari, expressed a willingness to negotiate, their gelatinous forms quivering with trepidation at the prospect of further conflict. Others, like the Zenthari, remained defiant, their crystalline leaders vowing vengeance. Amid these diplomatic overtures, the Terran fleet prepared for the worst. Humanity's leaders knew that peace was a fragile thing, easily shattered by fear or ambition. Then, without warning, a single alien ship entered the Sol system under a flag of truce. It was a small vessel, unarmed and bearing the insignia of the Council. On board was a delegation led by Ambassador Helix, a member of the once hostile Varnith species. Helix's elongated, insectoid form was a stark contrast to the humans she met, but her voice, translated through neural implants, carried an unexpected sincerity. "We underestimated you," Helix admitted during the initial meeting with Rourke and Earth's leaders. "Your resilience, your adaptability, they defy logic. But more than that, your willingness to fight for your survival with such ferocity, it is something the Council does not fully understand." "We fight because we have no choice," Rourke replied. "You gave us no choice." Helix's antennae twitched in what might have been a gesture of agreement. "Perhaps. But there are those among us who see the value in cooperation. The Council is fracturing. Many of its members question whether its leadership can truly guarantee peace. If humanity can survive and thrive on its own terms, perhaps others can as well." The discussions that followed were tense and cautious. Helix offered a proposal, a coalition of species, independent of the Council, united not by conquest but by mutual respect and shared interests. It was a radical idea, one that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Not everyone trusted Helix's motives. Rourke herself remained skeptical, but she saw the potential. This coalition, if successful, could be humanity's best chance at securing long-term survival. As humanity debated its next steps, the Council made its own moves. Their fractured fleet began to regroup, rallying under the leadership of the few remaining hardliners. They declared humanity's victory an affront to galactic order, vowing to return stronger than ever. The stage was set for a new era of galactic politics and warfare. Humanity stood at a crossroads, its future uncertain but filled with possibility. On the observation deck of the Indomitable, Rourke once again gazed out at the stars. This time, her expression carried a hint of something new, hope. "We've survived," she said quietly, her words meant as much for herself as for Davis, who stood beside her. "But now we have to do more than survive. We have to lead." "And we will," Davis replied, his voice steady. "If anyone can, it's us." The stars stretched out before them, vast and unknowable. Humanity had proven its worth, and the galaxy would never be the same.